Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. In this video, we're going to do a little bit of real talk. It's not that we don't do real talk in our other videos, but I'm not going to focus on a particular incident that's happened in the world or some news report that everyone is buzzing about on the internet. But I want to do some real talk, something that deals directly with you and I and every household that is under the sound of my voice. Some real talk. I want to talk about how we as a people, when I say a people, I'm talking about so-called Black people, indigenous people around the world, they seem to be trying to find their place in the world. And when you think about that statement, it doesn't seem right if the indigenous or the original people are trying to find their place. It's almost as if we don't realize or understand that our place is the world. Okay? The world is our place, but we're trying to find our place in the world. Now, I understand that certain regions were inhabited by us in Africa, in the land of Israel, or wherever we all originated from. I do understand all of that, but it seems like wherever we go, wherever we look, in the four corners of the world or of the earth, so-called indigenous or Black people can't seem to find their place, and they're actually trying to reestablish themselves in and through a corrupt system. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. It's like in trying to find out where we fit in or where we belong, we're trying to establish or reestablish ourselves through a corrupt system that was set up after the fact, after us. You see, I've talked about this before. Some of you kind of chimed in on it a little bit because it's not something that is heavily talked about, where the human landscape on the earth has changed. All of the different faces and hair textures and eye colors that you're seeing right now did not always exist. Now, this is something that is known even in science. Okay, so I'm not trying to be funny when I say any of this. I'm not trying to stir any pots of division. You know, many people try to claim division when you're bringing truth or shedding light on some things. But there are some things that have taken place in this world that have caused the human landscape to change. Okay, so the faces that we see have been kind of mixed and mingled and intertwined. And so therefore, you will go from the darkest of hue from those on the continent of Africa all the way down to the lightest of hue in various other regions around the world and everything else in between. And until we understand that something has changed at some point in time, at some point in history, something changed to where the human landscape differs. And I talked about in a previous video, or should I say in many previous videos, but more recently, I mentioned the fact that every human does spring forth from a so-called Black woman, but not every human comes from the Black man. And so, some of you are probably intrigued by that. And I'm not talking about those of you who are already in the know. I'm talking about those of you who just have a surface understanding of what has taken place in the world. And thus you don't realize or understand why so many things just seem to be out of balance. There is a very deep understanding to all of this and a very good reason for all of this as well. But until you start at the very beginning, start at the surface and rise your way up to the top, you're going to be confused if you try to jump too far ahead. But it's a reason why we talk about certain subjects on this channel. We've talked about them in depth before in the Whited Out series. Whited Out, if you just look at the title alone, is telling you that something that was dark was whited out. They have a scientific terminology for it. It's called blanqueamiento. Okay, that is where you will have so-called white people who will go into certain regions where there are dark populations, and they will intentionally mix their seed in with the women. Okay, notice they are not sending white women into these regions to mix and mingle with the black men to produce a lighter offspring. They are sending their men. Okay, they are sending the men or the heads of their nations into dark indigenous regions to mix their seed with the black or dark indigenous women to produce a lighter population. Okay, and so that is part of why the human landscape has changed. Okay, and that's even far beyond what took place way back when to even produce the lighter skinned people that you see today. Okay, so it goes even further than that. That is just a furthering or a continuation of what took place thousands of years ago. Now that I've said all of that, I want to get back into the original topic of the fact that we as the indigenous people are trying to find our place. We're trying to find our space in a world that we are the originators in. The original people were dark and indigenous, okay? And the human landscape changing has shifted much, okay? Because we have no understanding, because we don't delve into our history, because we have accepted the narrative that has been taught to us, because we have such a surface knowledge and a lack of desire to even explore, we're going to continue to falter and fail trying to reestablish ourselves in a corrupt system that was created by people who came after us. Did you get that? These people that came after us have established a system, and we are trying to find our way through that system. Instead of trying to find our way back to that place that we used to be in, that place of dominion, that place of power, we actually skirt away from the power. We run away from it because we would rather adhere to what they have to offer. Because I think what it is many so-called black people are afraid of power. They're afraid to fight or resist, should I say, anything that goes against what they desire. Because a great deal of our struggle is actually with our own selves. Our own selves have come to appreciate, love, and desire all of the artificial candy that has been given to us by this culture that sprang up after us. We've come to desire that to the point where we don't understand that the fight back to being original again is a worthwhile fight. But there's a lot that comes along with that. Okay, it's a lot of struggle that comes along with that. It's a lot of giving up that comes along with that or goes along with that. And that is what we're not willing to do. We are not willing to give up. We are not willing to struggle. And many of you won't even understand what I'm talking about when I say struggle. I don't mean struggle in the sense of not being able to take care of yourself. I'm talking about that struggle in the flesh that you will experience when you are giving up something that you want for the greater good. And another issue that we have, the greater good for us is to reestablish our people in general. Okay. But we don't want to do that. When you are trying to reestablish yourself with another group of people who are well established in their own foundation. Okay. And I'm not saying that their foundation is sure, because at the appointed time, the Most High, in which some of you don't even believe in the Most High, he's going to uproot that foundation that they think is sure, right? And he is going to plant us again firmly on stable ground. But for those of you who are not even willing to work at it right now, you are going to continue to complain. You're going to continue to sit on the sidelines looking at what other people are doing, not even trying to forge ahead just a little bit, coming up with every excuse that you can think of to sit still. And see, that's what we as a people do as well. Now, I want to say this, and I've said it quite a few times on this channel and on our ministry channel over the years. Okay, we've been at this for a long time, so we have thousands of videos between the two channels. But many times when you hear someone else say something about what you are to do to improve your life or your situation, you'll hear people say in the comment section that, well, not everyone has this or not everyone has that. Not everyone is able to do A, B, C, this, that, and the other. You'll have people saying that, and it sounds almost like an excuse. But what you don't realize is sometimes when you're looking at people, and I'm one of them, when you are looking at others who are telling you what you need to do to improve your situation or to get out of the place that you are in, excuse me for 1 second, family, in the wintertime, there's this thing that happens where chapped lips just kind of happen. But anyway, you'll look at people who may be at a certain place in their lives, and you'll say, well, not everyone has what you have, or not everyone can do what you do or can do or have done. And it sounds like an excuse. But again, what you don't realize is many who are telling you this, and I know I'm repeating myself, I'm trying to get a point across here. Many of us started at a very low place, and many times maybe even lower than where you are now. And there were certain driving motivations that made us say, you know what, I cannot afford to give up. I cannot afford to sit still. I cannot afford to sit on the sidelines. I've got to do what I've got to do for my family, myself, my situation, my people, however far you want to go into this. But it's an individual thing where you've got to make a choice, regardless to how low you are or where you are, your status, your situation. Many have been even lower and have been able to rise above. I've heard many stories of people who were literally homeless, and they took that situation of homelessness and they took one step at a time. And they said, I'm going to do something about my situation. Yah willing, of course, I would like to introduce a series on our membership channels. Well, not is on this channel, but we also have channel memberships now. But there's going to be a series that I would like to introduce to those of you who are interested in understanding how to take baby steps to get out of your situation. I don't care if you're on a fixed income. I don't care if you're a single mother. I don't care if you're handicapped. Right now, no one has an excuse, okay? And even the door for that is closing, because things are becoming very, very difficult here in the U.S. Other regions of the world have experienced things that are far worse on a greater scale than anything we've seen so far, okay? And many of them have survived and have been able to live through it. But when you have a people who live in a country and they're used to all of the modern conveniences, they're used to being able to just flick on a light and everything works, turn on the faucet and the water runs, turn on the furnace and the heat blows out, whatever the situation may be. When you're used to those types of things and you no longer have access to those things, all of a sudden you become very, very afraid, fearful, weak, and I'm going to say even pathetic. And when I say that, I'm talking about even myself. Okay, I can remember times where services were shut off for whatever reason, whether there was a power outage, some type of storm, and you just gotta sit there and you're like, what are we supposed to do? And you're literally helpless. You're sitting there, and in many cases, you're calling somebody. You're on the phone like, okay, let me call this department. Let me call that department, the water company, the light company, the gas company. I got to call somebody so they can help me in my situation. That is a pathetic place for us to be in, right? Because most of us, you see these lights right here? If the power were to go off and these companies were down for weeks, most of us will be down for weeks. You see, because we are dependent on something outside of us. I hope you all are getting what I'm saying here. Now, I know that I've talked about a number of different things, but I'm talking about how we as a people are supposed to change the world, but the world is changing us, and we've become dependent on the world to the point where if the world shuts down, we shut down. That is not a good place to be. Now, what I would like to recommend for some of you who may not have heard about this before, but there is a show called Coconut Revolution. Look it up, family, because that story was so inspiring of an indigenous population who, against all odds, beat a Goliath in their situation using primitive technology. You hear what I'm saying? They don't have access to the things that we have access to. But instead of them wallowing and sitting on the sidelines and stewing and wasting away in their own demise, these people decided that they were going to change the world that they lived in. Even though outsiders came in, dominated them, literally took over, and somewhat made them subject to their own rules, their own outside rules. This indigenous population, they said, you know what, no more. Enough of this. We are going to take back control of our little piece of paradise. The Coconut Revolution. Awesome. It is definitely something. As a matter of fact, I might do a separate video on the Coconut Revolution so that the message of that doesn't get lost in this video. But the point I'm trying to make is, and I'm gonna talk about this some more, family, because a lot of people make New Year's resolutions because it's a new year, but technically it is not. It is not a new year. That's another construct of the mind that many have gravitated to. We've been told that this is the new year because it's 2020. But when you understand that was something that was taught to us and we accepted it because we didn't know any better. But think about this for a moment. The new year, starting in the dead of winter when everything is dead. Does that sound new to you? We talked about this years ago on our ministry channel, how that was another bit of misinformation that was given to us. A new year starts when life begins. New year, new life, spring. That's when everything that died from the winter has now been given a breath of life, and new life is springing forth. Thus, you have a new year. Now, that makes a whole lot more sense than everything that is dead. They're calling this the new year, but everything is dead. We're in the dead of winter. And so, again, we are supposed to be the light of the world, and we are supposed to change the world, but the world is changing us. We have conformed to their knowledge and their information, things that seem backwards and don't make sense. But because this is what was taught to us, and because we question nothing, we only question it when it comes from someone looking like us. But when people who have deceived us time and time again for centuries tell us something, we take it at face value and we say, that is the truth. We declare that that is the truth. And so, again, I'm going to be talking more and more on these subjects because I want to stir your mind up, family. Too many of our people have a dormant mind, and that mind just sits on the sideline waiting for someone else to solve problems. Time out for that, okay? Whether you think this is the new year or not, this is 2020, okay? In 2020, you need to have a new focus and a new vision. It is time to redirect from the confusion that has been taught to our people for centuries. Time to redirect, time to dig ourselves up out of this pit that we've been put in. It is time to understand and reconnect with the truth. Now, of course, I could say so much more in this video. I don't want to bore your patience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread it out because I would like to touch on other things in all of this because I want my people to get a better understanding of what they see happening in the world so that they can stop conforming to confusion. With that, family, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.